Oh, we are going live. Yeah. Yes. So, first of all, a very good morning to Mr. Jack Canfield, and a grateful gratitude and thank you so much for spending your precious, time and your presence is so precious for me again on this Hygiene Presence Asia's largest women millionaire summit, powered by Airmeet. Okay. So my first question is for you is can you give a short intro to our audience?
A little bit of information about myself.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Now, most people in India probably know me as the Chicken Soup for the Soul founder and co-author. We now have over 250 books in print, over
Right.
500 million sold all around the world. I'm also a motivational speaker and trainer. I do have a book called The Success Principles, How to Get from Where You Are to Where You Want to Be. I've done over 2,500 workshops around the world in 100 countries. And I am been on 1,000 radio and television shows. And my biggest commitment is to inspire and empower people to live their highest vision in the context of love and joy. So what you're doing with your conference and your summit is what I do as a daily practice.
Oh my God.
That's what I'm about.
Okay. Okay. So I have one more question, Jack. May I know what is the purpose of yours? I want to know the core purpose.
Well, as I said, is to inspire and empower people to live
Okay.
their highest vision, not their parents, not their school teachers, not the governments, but their highest vision of what they want to achieve, express, experience in the world in a context of love and joy. So everyone who knows me knows that I'm a very loving person. I have a lot of fun. I've sometimes
Right.
even been called irreverent. I like to, just enjoy life. And I love to help people figure out, like in this Chicken Soup for the Soul stories, inspire people to believe it's possible. And books like The Success Principle, Dare to Win, The Power of Focus, those give people the tools to actually fulfill their dreams.
Amazing.
Amazing, amazing. Uh, that's so inspiring, Jack. So that is where my next question actually comes to you. You are known as a transformational guru, and you have transformed millions of lives. The question is, what was your vision behind when you started this journey, and what was your moment of transformation?
Well, there were several steps along the way that were transformational. I did not start out to become a transformational teacher or guru, as you say. I once learned that guru means to take someone from darkness to light, from guru. And so basically, I help enlighten people, if you will, to what's possible for them and how to get it. But for me, I started out as a high school teacher in Chicago back in the 1970s. I'm 75 years old. And I wanted to teach history. And what happened was I became more interested in why my students weren't motivated to read. These were kids from the very poor neighborhoods, and they were mostly African American. And I just became interested in that. And so I started studying self-esteem, motivation. And I was sitting in a laundromat when I was in graduate school at the University of Chicago. This man comes up to me and says, stop reading your book and talk to me. I was okay. So basically, we got to become friends. And he had been attending this seminar series up at Kendall College, north of Chicago, in a place called Evanston, Illinois. And he took me to one of them. And the man speaking was the director of the National Center for the Exploration of Human Potential. His name was Herbert Otto. And he said that now most people are only using 10% of their potential. You could learn to speak 7 languages. You could learn to play the piano or any musical instrument. You could sing, you could dance, you could, learn all kinds of things and use more of your potential. And I went up to him afterwards and I said, I'm fascinated by this. Where do I learn more about using my potential? And there was what was called a growth center, a place where they put on seminars in Chicago. And I went there, and I think that first year I took 17 weekend workshops. And then the next year I got hired by a man named W. Clement Stone, who was worth about $600 million. He had a foundation called the W. Clement and Jesse V. Stone Foundation. There was a program there called the Achievement Motivation Program. How do you motivate people to achieve more? So I started working for his foundation, and he made the mistake of saying, take any workshop you want, I'll pay for it. So I took 38 weekend workshops that year. I think the only time there wasn't a workshop was when it was Mother's Day, Christmas, New Year's, that kind of thing. So there weren't any more offered. And so that was the beginning of me just really exploring my own potential and learning to meditate and to set goals and to use affirmations and visualization. And then I would say the last thing that happened was when I was introduced to Vipassana meditation, which is a form of Buddhist meditation, which literally transformed my relationship to spirit, to knowledge, to higher power, to intuition, and so forth. And that's been doing it ever since.
That's
Awesome.
interesting. That's interesting.
Awesome. So I want to ask, like, do you believe in spirituality and meditation? And if yes, then what difference that has made in your life?
Yeah, yes to both of those. I believe in spirituality. I think everything comes from spirit and goes back into spirit. I'm a believer in reincarnation. I have had direct experience of remembering past lives under hypnosis and sometimes just spontaneously coming to me while listening to music or meditating. For me, meditation, I do 4 different kinds of meditation. I mentioned Vipassana, which is mainly just watching your breath and then watching your mind, watching the thoughts go by. I do a form of mantra meditation where you repeat a mantra over and over, more from the Hindu tradition. I'm also do a meditation called the Tree of Life, which comes from Kabbalah, which is a Jewish mysticism, and then also Christian meditation. But the key for me is that most people don't know this, but the title for Chicken Soup for the Soul came from a meditation. We had all these stories and no title for the book. And so Mark Victor Hansen, my co-author, and I, we decided we would meditate and ask a higher power, spirit, God, universal intelligence, source energy, however you want to refer to it, to give us a title. And so for 3 days, nothing occurred. And then on I think it was actually the 3rd day or the 4th day, this hand came out. There was this big green chalkboard like you see at school, and it wrote the words chicken soup on it. And I remember saying to the hand, what the heck does chicken soup have to do with this book? And this voice in my head said, when you were sick as a child, your grandmother gave you chicken soup. And I said, but this is not a book about people who are sick. And they said, people's spirits are sick. They're living in resignation, hopelessness, and fear. And so I thought, chicken soup for the spirit? No. Chicken soup for the soul? And then I got goosebumps. And I called Mark, he got goosebumps. My wife got goosebumps. I called my agent, he got goosebumps. We went to New York City, met with 21 publishers. Nobody got goosebumps. So basically, that book was turned down by 144 publishers over the course of a year and a half before we got a yes. And then that yes turned into the book, which turned into the phenomenon it is now. And I have to say, the first time I came to India, people would go, we do not eat the chickens. What is this chicken soup? We're vegetarian. So I said, we'll have to recall it khichdi for the soul or something like that.
Awesome. Amazing.
So, Jack, that actually leads to my next question. What exactly is transformation in true sense, according to you? And what are the key principles, according to you, one must follow during the transformation journey?
Well, I think the transformation, the definition of it is that you change form. Something happens that you're no longer the person you used to be. I think you become the person you actually are. When I was in Thailand a number of years ago with my wife, we were doing a series of workshops and we had a day off, and we traveled to this place called the Temple of the Golden Buddha. And it's a 10.5-foot tall solid gold Buddha worth about, I think it's like the gold value alone, if you just melted it down and sold it off in ounces, was like, $100 million or something. It's huge. And the story behind it was that in the 1950s, they were moving what they thought was a large clay Buddha from one side of Bangkok to the other to make way for a road that they were going to put through this area where the temple was. And as they were lifting it up with a crane, it was a lot heavier than they thought it would be. It started to crack. And so they put it back down on the ground because they didn't want to break it, basically. And they covered it with a tarp because it started to rain. And that night, the head monk came out and shined a flashlight in to see if it was staying dry. And something reflected back from the crack. And they knew that clay doesn't reflect light. So the next morning in the back where it wouldn't show if they made a mistake, they chipped away. And lo and behold, they found this golden Buddha. And their best theory is that about 200 or 300 years earlier, the Burmese were attacking Thailand. And these monks knew they were coming. So they covered this very valuable gold Buddha with clay and then reshaped it to look like a Buddha and then painted it so it would look like a worthless clay Buddha. They think that what happened was all the monks were massacred and the secret died with the monks, so nobody knew it was in there. And that night I was having dinner with my wife and I said, that people are like that golden Buddha, that on the outside we're covered with clay, which are our limiting beliefs, our fears, our cultural conditioning, all the things that say like women aren't as valuable as men and that, dark people aren't as valuable as white people, and, all the crazy stuff that we learn. And the reality is we have to get rid of that to come back to the golden essence that lives inside of us, whether we call it Buddha nature or Christ consciousness or God consciousness, whatever. There's an essence of who we are. And I believe that is what we're transforming back into when we do this work, whether it's taking seminars on success, whether it's doing meditation, whether it's therapy, counseling, coaching, that we're basically the word discover means to take the cover off of. So we're discovering that which is not essentially us. And as we do that, we become totally who we are. We develop a sense of humor. We get more intuition. We're smarter. We're wiser. We're more loving. We're more compassionate. We're more able to, through the law of attraction, our vibration is higher. So we attract more people to want to do business with us, that want to be friends with us, that want to, co-venture with us, etc.
Okay.
So let me say one more thing, because you asked me two questions, really.
Sure.
The first was, what is transformation? The second was, what do you have to do along the journey to actually achieve that? And I think, I wrote a book called The Success Principles, How to Get From Where You Are to Where You Want to Be. And in there are 67 principles of success, all of which I had applied to my own life, which is why I was so successful. I'm a multimillionaire worth tens of millions of dollars. And I didn't start out that way. I was born into a family where we lived in a house that cost $8,000. My dad made about $6,000 a year. And so we were poor. And so basically, I learned these principles and strategies and applied them. But I think the main thing you have to do first is take 100% responsibility for your life. Meaning you stop blaming other people, you stop complaining about the way things are, and you stop making excuses. I think that's the core foundation that everybody has to do. And then you have to discover your why. Why are you here? What is your purpose? You asked me, what is my purpose? Everybody has a unique purpose. Some people are meant to be chefs and cooks. Some people are meant to be mechanics. Some people are meant to be musicians. Some people are meant to be trainers like you and I. So the reality is, once you know your why, what you know you're here for, and there's exercises that you can do to achieve that, get clarity, then you have to create a vision for what would your life look like if you were to fulfill this purpose, if you were to get your dream to come true, if you will, to express yourself, to acquire the things you want, to do the things you want to do. And then you have to turn that into goals that are specific, measurable goals. Then use affirmations, visualization, take action, learn how to support yourself in action, learn how to reject negativity, reject rejection, learn how to ask for feedback, not be afraid of it, because you can't get better with feedback. And then perseverance. So these are some of the core things that you have to learn, and we can unpack any of that along the way if you want.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
So I want to understand one thing, that as I'm from the marketing background and I'm into digital marketing, I'm gonna be a little bit selfish, you can say, but if I have to write a book, okay, and on marketing psychology, you can say, so what are the 5 key points anybody can consider while starting any book, to write any book?
Well, first of all, you have to have something to say. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's your life story. It's a memoir because you've overcome obstacles and that story inspires others. Sometimes it's something you've learned. Maybe you've learned a meditation technique that's transformational and most people don't know about it. Or in your case, you've learned about digital marketing and most people may not know about that. So you have to have something valuable to say. And what I tell people, teach it live for a few times before you try to write a book about it. In other words, learn how to speak it, learn how to get feedback, find out what questions people ask you. When you get to the point where you think you have something to say, maybe do some blogs about it, and then ask people to ask you questions about where it wasn't clear. People will tell you what they want you to write about by the questions they ask you. And so most people don't really know where they're not being clear. They don't know what people want to learn. Sometimes you're teaching above gradient, where a lot of college professors do this, university professors. They've been teaching for so long, they don't realize what most people don't know is basics. Once you feel you have enough to say, you do the research or your own experience, or you interview people or whatever, then you have to sit down and write. One of my friends who lives in Australia calls it bum glue. You got to glue your bum to the chair and do the writing. And there's several ways to do that. You can type it, you can dictate it, you can have someone interview you, you can give a speech about it and have it transcribed, but you've got to get words on paper that then you can edit. And the first time through, don't try to edit it as you're writing it, just write. And once you've written, then what I recommend you do is you let it sit for a little bit, maybe a week or two, whatever, and then go back with an editorial eye and edit what you've written. Then, and this is the most important thing that we did with Chicken Soup for the Soul that made it so successful, you have to get feedback. In other words, most books are written by one person, read by their wife or their husband, read by a literary agent, read by an acquisition editor at the publishing house. So you got 4 or 5 people's opinion whether it's any good. With Chicken Soup for the Soul, every story you read in those books were stories where we had 40 people read them. Black, white, brown, young, old, young, middle-aged, conservative, liberal, Democrats, Republicans, urban, suburban, rural, college graduated, not college graduated, high IQ, low IQ. We wanted stories that had a universal appeal, that everyone would go, wow, that's a great story. Many stories that I wrote did not end up in the books. Even though my ego wanted them in there, they didn't test well with the reading audience. And so, Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, his last book, he put every chapter on the internet and let thousands of people give him feedback. And what was really cool is that when he brought the book out, all those thousands of people wanted a copy of the book because they knew they had helped write it.
Yes,
so it was a great way to do that as well. And then what I would say is you've got to find a publisher or an agent, or you have to self-publish. And that's a decision you have to make as well. And, basically, if you want a book publisher, a big publisher to publish the book, usually you have to have a literary agent. You have to do a book proposal. And there's a great book called How to Write the Perfect Book Proposal by Jeff Herman. He was our agent, actually, on the first Chicken Soup book. So those are some of the keys I would suggest.
Okay, but one more thing. For example, if we have set the goals and someone knows the purpose, mission, and vision, but on today's world, the internet is so vast and there are so many negative distractions plus negative comments. So how in your 20s or in your 30s, how did you deal with that negative comments, negative vibes, and the people talking behind you, everything? How do you deal with that?
In my 20s and 30s, the internet hadn't been invented yet, so that wasn't much of a problem for me. But what I think, a friend of mine wrote a book. Terry Cole Whitaker wrote a book, and it was called "What You Think of Me Is None of My Business." And so basically what you want to do is become immune to other people's feedback. It's just feedback. In other words, if I was a 2-year-old child and you made a dinner for me and I didn't like it, you probably wouldn't take my feedback that importantly because I'm 2 years old. And if I don't like broccoli or zucchini or something, it's not going to be the end of the world for you. Now, if I'm a famous chef and I tell you your food's not that great, you might want to take the feedback a little more seriously. But in general, most people's feedback is just information. And a lot of it's not accurate. Sometimes you look like somebody's uncle that might have abused them when they were a kid. And so they're going to have a negative impact with you. Or some people are going to give you negative feedback because they're jealous of you. They want to bring you down to their level. A lot of people do that in families. You think you're so great because you wrote a book, So basically, I think you have to be kind of ignore it. I know a lot of actors who tell me they never read reviews of their plays or their book or their movies because they just really don't care. They did the best job they could. If they could have done better, they would have done better. Now, if you're getting feedback from a director telling you how you could have been a better actor, that's probably valuable, but someone out in the world. So today I would say the main thing that distracts people is the computer and the phone and the television. And I would say that in general, you should limit your time. My mentor, W. Clement Stone, said to me when I interviewed for him, the onboarding interview after he hired me, he asked me 3 questions. He says, do you watch television? I said, yes. He said, how many hours a day? I said, 3. He said, I want you to cut it down to 1. I said, why? He said, you're wasting 3 hours a day watching other people get rich while you're not. And so he
Right.
said, that's time you could be selling, you could be learning, you could be exercising, you could be having a meaningful relationship with someone you care about. And so that was a big in the, as I say, influence in my life. If you cut out 1 hour of television a day, think about this. That's 365 additional hours a year. Divide
True.
that by a 40-hour work week. That's 9.5 extra weeks of 40-hour weeks that you've added to your year to write a book, to market, to exercise, to spend with your family, to be a better parent, whatever it might be.
Very true. Very true.
Awesome.
So,
Thank
so,
you.
so Jack, uh, uh, so I have been a mentor to a lot of small businesses and startups over almost 8, 9 years now. And one of the very pertinent questions that I feel in any transformation journey is the role of a mentor. Do you think mentor actually helps you transform, or do you think you need to have a mentor, or everyone needs to have a mentor in each other's lives?
Right.
Yeah, I think two things are important. One is getting coaching along the way, and the other is having a mentor. Sometimes a mentor acts like a coach. Sometimes a mentor just gives you information which you have to act on. Sometimes a mentor will take you under their wing and introduce you to people and to books and to seminars and things you need to learn. I think mentors are really important. I've had many mentors along the way who have shared their wisdom with me. And a lot of people are afraid to approach a mentor for fear they're like, why would they talk to me? And the
True.
thing is, most people that are successful had mentors, and they want to turn
Right.
around and pay it forward. And so, will everyone say yes to you? No. Will a lot of people say yes to you? You only need 1 or 2 or 3 people in your life to become mentors to you that can be very valuable. I'll share a quick story. When I was in, where was it, Malaysia, I walked into this hotel lobby, and this young man came up to me, and he said, "Are you Jack Canfield?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "I've been waiting for you all day." And he knew I was doing a workshop at the arena next door to this hotel, so he hoped I was going to register there. And he was 19 at the time. He was a aspiring magician. And he said, "Can I come up to your room and show you some magic tricks?" And I said, "Sure." So we came up to my room. He showed me some magic tricks. He was really very good. And he said, "Would you be willing to mentor me?" And I said, "Well, here's the deal. It's a little bit hard to do long distance, but come to my workshop tomorrow as my guest." I gave him a copy of my book for free, The Success Principles, and he came. And over the course of the next couple of years, there were a couple emails we sent back and forth and so forth. But what he did, one of the things I taught was to have a mastermind group, a group of like 5 or 6 people, all of whom are committed to success, some of whom hopefully are succeeding at a higher level than you, so that you can learn from them. It's almost like a mentorship group, if you will. And so you can brainstorm solutions to problems, introduce each other to people that would be valuable. So he calls up this millionaire guy, multi-millionaire. He's 19 years old, and he gets an appointment with him at 6:30 in the morning, because a lot of these millionaires wake up really early. I learned this. I wrote the foreword for a book called The Billionaire Secret. And this guy, Raphael Badziag, interviewed 21 billionaires in 17 countries and 17 different industries. Every one of them got up before 5 or 5:30 in the morning. So this guy was already meeting people at 6:30 in the morning. Some people still just getting up. Anyway, he goes over there and meets with them, and he says, "I would like to be in a mastermind group with you." The guy said, "What's a mastermind group?" And he explained it was like 6 people. And he said, "You should get 2 of your billionaire friends, and I'll get 2 of my friends. You bring the wisdom, I'll bring the youth and the new ideas and the enthusiasm." He did that. And they met every month for an hour and a half in this guy's tower, office. And eventually, he really got behind this guy's. His name's Kabir. He got behind Kabir's dream to be a magician. He paid for him to go to Las Vegas for 2 years and study with the best magicians on the planet. And when he came back, he made it into the Malaysian Book of Records. He now travels all through the Gulf and through India and so forth, doing magic. And the coolest part was the guy that's the billionaire. If you know, the Petronas Towers is the tallest building in Kuala Lumpur. Malaysia, yeah. And so this billionaire built a revolving restaurant at the top of it and asked Kabir, who was now only in his 20s, if he would like to be a partner. So now he's a partner with this billionaire because he had the courage to reach out and ask for mentorship and ask for him to be part of the mastermind group. So that's the power, the potential power of mentorship. I totally support and think everyone should have a mentor. You have to ask. And the last thing I would say with mentors is when they give you advice, unless it's something really wrong, and you just know it in your heart, do it. Because if I'm giving you information and advice and you don't take it, I'm going to start wondering, why am I wasting my time with you? So
Right.
let them know you
Exactly.
acted on the information. Let them know you appreciate it. And if there's anything you see that might be valuable to them, you read an article, send it to them. In other words, as much as possible, give back.
Very
Awesome.
interesting. Very interesting.
That was interesting story. Seriously. Yeah. So, as you know, Jack, a system never fails, right? So, I want to understand what system do you follow in your life, and what habits do you have into a day-to-day life?
Well, I'll answer that, and let me preface it by saying it's a very good question, because what happens is a wonderful book called Atomic Habits by a guy named James Clear. And what he realized over time was that goal setting is very valuable.
Right.
But he said it's not enough, because what happens when you set a goal, once you achieve it, there's kind of like a letdown, like postpartum depression when women have a baby. And so he said more importantly, even, is developing systems that will actually get you to the goal. So if my goal was to lose weight, let's say to lose, so many kilograms or pounds, what I would want to do is, what's my system for getting there? Well, it might be cutting back 200 calories a day. It might be exercising for 30 minutes on my treadmill every day. It might be drinking, 12 glasses of 16 ounces of water. It might be reading something motivational every day in the morning. It might be taking a walk after dinner. So I want to build all those things into my day, which becomes a system. If you're a salesperson, you have a system of, like, I teach something called the rule of 5. A minimum of 5 calls to potential clients every day. Remax, which is one of the largest real estate agencies in the world, has what they call the 5, 10, 15, 5 rule. You have 5 in-person meetings, either to sell a house or list a house. You have 10 phone calls to either set up those kind of meetings. You send out 15 thank you cards, literally physical cards, to people thanking them for the meeting or the call. And then you go view 5 properties. Now, that's a system that if you do that every day, you're going to be making, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in real estate. So for me, my daily system includes something I call the hour of power, which is 20 minutes of meditation in the morning, 20 minutes of exercise. Usually it goes to 30 or 40 because I just get into it. And then 20 minutes of reading minimum. And sometimes I read longer than that. John Maxwell, who you've probably heard of, a great leadership guru, reads for an hour every morning and writes for an hour every morning. That's why he has so many books. If you're ever in the airports in the United States, you see racks of his books because he writes so much. But you have the system to produce this. So after that, I will go and I'll eat my breakfast consists of a blender drink. I put a lot of, vegetable powders and protein powders and some blueberries and different things like that in there. I take about 50 pills in the morning. They're vitamins and minerals and herbs and things like that. A lot of people say, my hairline's starting to look like I'm 75, and my skin looks like I'm 50, and I feel young. And
you're still young.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So for me, that's a big part of my daily system. And then I come to my office, and I used to do emails first thing in the morning. And what I was doing was letting other people's priorities run my life. Excuse me. So right now I'll write for an hour, sometimes 2. And then I will get online and do things like this. I probably do 4 interviews or podcasts or summits or, classes a day. I believe, as you know, in internet marketing, you have to have a constant presence with Facebook, with Instagram, with all the different podcasts that are out there, etc. So I do that and then lead people back to my website with some kind of free gift that will capture their email address so that we can then market to them. And then toward the end of the day, I will handle all my emails. And then I go in around 6 o'clock and spend the rest of the night with my wife. And if I didn't do that part, I wouldn't be married. So basically,
okay. So how do you balance family life and professional life?
Well, as I said, I make a commitment to stop by 6 o'clock. My wife gives me up till 7, but I usually try to get in there by 6, and then we cook dinner together and so forth. And for me, I'm allowed to work Saturdays. This is Saturday morning in the United States. And so I can work Saturday up till about 1 o'clock. And then the afternoon, we'll do things together. Like, right now we have a project where I'm teaching a class where this month's focus is cleaning up incompletes, tolerations, irritations and messes. And so we're going through every drawer, every closet, cleaning out things that no longer fit, throwing away things we don't wear anymore, etc. Most people know the 20-80 rule. You wear 20% of your clothes 80% of the time, all that kind of stuff. So we'll do some of that this afternoon. And then Sunday's our day off. Like we're having friends over tonight. We're social distancing, but we have this big fire pit where we can all sit 6 feet apart with our masks on. And so we have two people coming over, and we're keeping that going socially. And then Sunday is our day to just be together. We'll probably do longer meditation together, maybe trade massages, make love, take longer walks on the beach, things like that. And that's basically how we do it.
Amazing. So you were mentioning about those 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle, right? 80% of your business comes from 20% of your clients. 80% of your customers are give 20%. 20% of your customers gives 80% of the revenue.
Yes.
Amazing. Jack, I have this next question. When we reached out to you, talking about this Women Millionaire Summit that's currently happening, what was, according to you, that you felt this was unique about this summit, and that you thought, how can this help all the participants that are currently attending, also right now and post the summit as well?
Well, I think, what's unique about it from my perspective is there have been summits for women before, not that many. They tend to be either general or on business or around being online or around, whatever. But I think in India, women have been, treated as second-class citizens for a long time. There's not been a lot of empowerment of women. I have some friends who are women in India. They're very successful in their businesses. Some of them are students of mine and so forth. But I think generally across the culture, this is a very powerful and unusual thing to be providing such information, especially about becoming millionaires, about becoming financially independent, about becoming your own business owner, about becoming successful online and so forth. So I think that's important. And most people, especially in a country that's been plagued by poverty for centuries, although now there are a lot of, internet millionaires and so forth. And, trying to think of the name of the city, Bangalore and places like that, which are like really taking off, Silicon Valley, that kind of thing. There's a lot of movement going on, a lot of more education, but you'll still see, headlines of women being raped and so forth and so on. So I think it's good. I think that I really want to honor you guys and gals for doing that. And the second thing I think is providing ways for women to support each other. Like we have a lot of women millionaires and now billionaires in America. Like the woman who invented Spanx has become a celebrity on the cover of Fortune 500 and magazines and Forbes and things like that. And I think those stories are inspiring to people. And I think people need to be inspired by other people who've done it. Tony Robbins has a great quote. He says, "Success leaves clues."
Yes.
And so everyone who's been successful, I think, has the responsibility to turn around and support other people, to give a hand up, if you will. And most of your speakers are those people who are doing that, whether they're male or female. I think that's very powerful. And to have several days of this kind of education, this is another thing about summits, is you're getting a lot of information and inspiration and motivation all packed together. And so it has a much more empowering effect. It's like I mentioned, I take a lot of pills in the morning, vitamins and herbs and those, and they all interact with each other and empower each other and make them more bioavailable than if I just took one vitamin C tablet. And so basically the fact that you're getting hit over and over and over and over from a lot of different sides, a lot of different people, a lot of different personality styles, a lot of different backgrounds that people have come from, a lot of different businesses they're involved with and so forth. I think it's fabulous. And I think the thing I would say to everyone listening and watching is that it's one thing to be inspired. It's another thing to be motivated. But I say that success is the result of inspiration, motivation, information, and perspiration. The perspiration means you've got to do the work. If you don't do the work and you just take notes from all these speakers and you go home and you put them on a shelf, you have what I call shelf esteem. You don't really have a transformed life. And so it's putting, if you just took a few things and put them into action, a lot of people don't do anything. And there's probably more things you're going to learn here than you can do in the next week. But if you slowly put these things into action and make them systems and make them practices and habits, then what will happen is your life will become transformed.
I loved what you said: inspiration, motivation, perspiration, and the fourth one was
Information.
information.
Yeah,
Amazing, amazing.
yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, so here's my last question for Jack. How to learn storytelling? Because most of the people just say, as I am 27, okay, and whenever I ask my any of the top digital marketers or mentors, you can say that you need to add value in the market. Okay, you need to add value. You need to add value, but nobody teaches us that how to add value, and plus how to convert it into a storytelling, basically.
Well, people relate to stories. For centuries and centuries,
Right.
millennia, people have been sitting around fires, around on porches and kitchens, telling their stories, to each other. And
Right.
a good story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And usually the middle, there's an obstacle. There's something you had to overcome. You had to
Exactly.
overcome racism. You had to overcome sexism. You had to overcome having no money. A lot of the stories that are in the Billionaire Secret are stories of people who were born really, really poor. This one guy in China who makes more of the windshields for cars than any other manufacturer in the world. He was born so poor that he couldn't even afford to go to school. And he would go up early in the morning. He would go down to the riverside with a little sickle, a scythe, and he would cut the grass that was growing by the river and make like a little bale of hay. He would sell that to the farmers for like a penny. Maybe they had a cow or a goat or something like that, sheep. And so what happens is it took him almost a year to earn enough money to buy a dictionary. And then it took him 3 years to earn enough money to buy an encyclopedia so he could learn. And eventually he was able to go to a community college based on how much he learned. And I think he had 21 different jobs before he ended up owning his own company. And then he went on to be this billionaire in China. And so when you hear that story, and I haven't told it very well, those are just the key points, but you can embellish all that about why he wasn't able to go to school and how his parents said you'll never become anything, all of that. Then that makes that story very interesting.
Right.
I'll tell you one more story, and then we'll see why it's so powerful. I was at a talk. I was at a conference where all of us had been successful. And we were talking to graduate students to inspire them to a life of service. And this
Right.
one man stood up and he shared that he had grown up poor, but was very successful. He was a real estate developer. And at one point, he was worth $600 million. And he said, I wasn't happy. And he said, my life went through 4 stages. The first stage was stuff. I thought if I bought all the right stuff, I'd be happy. So I bought the private jet, I bought the boats, I bought the big house, I bought the luxury cars, and I wasn't happy. And he said the
Right.
second part of my life was called better stuff. So I bought a bigger boat and a bigger car and a bigger plane, better house, more toys, more jewelry for my wife, still wasn't happy. And he said the third phase of my life was called different stuff. Maybe I'm buying the wrong kind of stuff. So he said, so I bought a football team, the Seattle Seahawks football team with a couple of guys. So now we owned an NFL football team. We got to go down the field. We got to go in a clubhouse. We had our owner's box. Still wasn't happy. And then a guy called me up and he said, I'm going to Bosnia-Herzegovina where children have had their legs blown off by landmines, and I'm going to take them wheelchairs. Would you like to come with me? And he said, sure. So they loaded 40 wheelchairs on this guy's private jet. They flew to Bosnia-Herzegovina. They land on this landing field, and there's 40 kids lined up. And they take the wheelchairs out, and one by one, they're putting them into wheelchairs. And he said, I picked up this one child. I put him in the wheelchair. He's an 11-year-old boy. And I went to get another kid in another wheelchair, and the boy grabbed my leg and wouldn't let go. So I turned around, and through an interpreter, he looked me in the eye, and he said, please don't leave yet. I want to memorize your face. Because when we meet again in heaven, I want to thank you one more time. And he said, that was the first day of my life I felt pure joy. And he said, I came home and I started the Ken Behring Wheelchair Foundation. And today he's given over 40,000 wheelchairs away, pretty much every country in the world. Now,
Amazing.
why is that an inspiring story? 2 reasons. Number one, it goes right to the heart of the essence of who we are, which is generous, loving spirits. But what's the obstacle? The obstacle is he couldn't find his happiness. He tried all the things that don't work. Stuff, more stuff, money, toys, all that thing didn't work. So when you tell a story like that, I would then go into saying something like, so you have to find a thing that's going to make your heart come alive. What's that going to be for you? Because we all need something where we're being of service, because that's the greatest happiness we'll ever find. So for you in internet marketing, providing value, Gary Vaynerchuk, jab, jab, right hook, whatever he says. You got to give value, then you sell. And so
Right.
the reality is you can give value by giving people a technique. One of the things you can do every day is do the rule of 5. I met this guy, Jack Canfield. He says, do 5 action steps every day toward the fulfillment of your goal. Or if you don't have a system, or here's a time management technique, or here's something you can do in the morning when you first wake up. That's value. You can give an inspirational story. Read it. There's about 250 Chicken Soup for the Soul books with a lot of inspirational stories. My book, The Success Principle, has inspirational stories around the success principles. Right. Share those stories with people. People are moved. And when they're moved emotionally, now they're bonded to you, Pratik. And then what they want to do is they become a follower of you because you made them feel good. And then they're going to want to keep following you. And then they're going to want to see what you have to offer. And so basically, that's why it's so important. If you're a CEO in America, every CEO has taken a course called How to Tell Stories to Sell Your Brand.
Amazing.
People buy brands that they have a positive relationship with.
Exactly.
I tell you another secret. You asked about book selling. Every Chicken Soup for the Soul book that was published in America, I can't speak for the ones published in India because there's now Chicken Soup for the Indian Soul, Chicken Soup for the Indian Military Wife Soul, etc. They're being co-authored by Indians. But what happens is that in the American books, there was always about 10 to 17 cartoons. Why? When someone would pick up the book at a bookstore, just leaf through it, they see a cartoon. What do? You stop. You want to read the caption.
Right.
If it makes you laugh, you now go, oh, I like this book. And so you're starting to have a positive connection emotionally with the book. And so at the point of purchase, you're more likely to buy it.
Very interesting. It just sends goosebumps to hear that story about the wheelchair, honestly. It's actually touching the heart. We would definitely love to keep this continuing, Jack. It's really inspiring. Really, I am enjoying. I'm sure all the audience is also enjoying. We are really privileged to have you with us. It has sent me one message, which says that you need to have principles in life that if you want to be successful. Before I think we depart, I just want to ask you one last message that you wish to pass to all your participants, all the viewers that are here, on how to get maximum out of your life when you feel less focused. So what is that one thing that you feel?
Well, I'm going to give you a 2-part answer. The first is very self-serving. I would, if you have not read the Success Principles book, I really want to encourage you to do that. It's also available in India in a shortened version called How to Get From Where You Are to Where You Want to Be. That was the UK version of the book. But either of those, and I think that version's in Hindi and in Tamil and maybe one other language as well. So I really encourage you to do that. And it's not because I need another dollar. I have tens of millions of dollars. But I know that everyone who's ever read those books gets value. And if you want more information about my work, jackcanfield.com, I encourage you to go there. And I would say what I would leave you with as a message is this. You have everything in you to achieve anything you desire. You are not able to come up with a wish, a dream, a hope, a desire if you don't have the capacity to fulfill it. It's built into the brain, if you will. It's built into the capacity to dream. And so if you have a dream, if you leave this conference, this summit, with a bigger dream, and I hope you will, that you give yourself permission to dream bigger. I think it was General Wesley Clark, who used to be head of the Allied NATO forces, said, it doesn't take any more effort to dream a big dream than it takes to dream a small dream. You don't have to screw up your face more. You don't have to use more brain cells, more calories don't get burned up. You just put an extra zero behind it, more acres, more, locks, whatever. You basically say, this is what I want. And if you can dream it, you can achieve it. I think Walt Disney said that. And the reality is you have the talent within you. You may not have fully realized it. You may not have developed it. You may have to do some work like taking piano lessons or speech lessons or learning how to integrate humor into your talk or learning how to be online and do an interview correctly and so forth. But you have the capacity. You may need to partner with other people and you have the ability to do that. You may need to go get some degree or some certification you don't have. You have the ability to do that. And it might take you a little longer than you'd like. But if you do a little bit every day and stay consistent, you can achieve anything you want. I don't care how young you are. how old you are, how educated or uneducated you are. You could give me a story about your condition. I can tell you 5 people who had the same condition and went on to have great success. So believe in your dreams, believe in yourself, have the courage to ask for the support you need, have the courage to sustain in the face of obstacles. You're going to fail, learn from your failure, just think of it as course correction, and persist. And if you do that, I promise you, you'll achieve great success.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Amazing.
Amazing.
So yes, so here was Jack Canfield audience, and once again I would like to call upon the Hygiene Presents Asia's largest Women Millionaire Summit powered by Airmate. And it was great having you, Jack Canfield. We enjoyed this talk and discussion so much. A lot of gratitude and pleasure. It was pleasure to have you, and namaste from India.
Namaste back to you. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much. Thank you so much. And we look forward to having you more often now with us. And,
Right.
I would like to thank again you and all our partners on behalf of Women Millionaire Summit for joining us here. And stay tuned. We will have more of Jack Canfield. We'll have more of speakers that are coming up. So
Right.
once again, thanks a ton, Jack, for spending your valuable time, but more important, your valuable insights of 70 plus
Exactly.
years of learning that you've been able to share with us for this next 45 minutes that we were here. So once again, thank you so much.
My
Thank you
pleasure.
so much.
Thank you, Pratik. Take care. Bye.
Bye.